There is a moment when the body changes its fundamental agreement with time. For decades, you have moved with a certain reckless freedom, assuming the machinery would always reset overnight. But as you cross the threshold of 40, that biological warranty begins to expire. This is the pivot. The invisible clock, which once hummed in the background, starts to tick louder and more insistently. This invisible force works against you every hour of the day, chipping away at the strength you once took for granted. It is not just about a few gray hairs or a slower recovery from a long weekend. Deep within your muscle fibers, a silent takeover is beginning. This is when the biological maintenance crew slows down, and your physical foundation starts to feel the weight of every passing year. You are entering a phase where your body no longer gives you health for free. From now on, every ounce of vitality must be earned through intentional design. Meet the primary antagonist of your middle years: sarcopenia. It is often called the muscle tax, and it is the most expensive bill you will ever pay. It is a metabolic levy that the passing of time demands from everyone. From the age of 40, most individuals begin to lose between 3 and 5% of their muscle mass every single decade. It sounds small, like a simple rounding error in a bank account, but over 30 years, this loss becomes a literal death sentence for longevity. Sarcopenia is the erosion of your metabolic engine, the weakening of your hormonal shield, and the slow destruction of your foundation of independence. When you lose muscle, you lose the ability to manage blood sugar, you lose the protection of your joints, and you lose the very spark that keeps your metabolism burning bright. As a longevity architect, you stand at a crossroads in this modern era. You know the decline is coming, but you refuse to let the invisible clock dictate the terms of your future. The question is no longer whether to train, but how to train for the long game. Do you return to the ancient art of bodyweight mastery, finding your strength in the flow zone through calisthenics? This path teaches you to move your own frame through space with grace and functional power. Or do you enter the iron fortress, using the mechanical intensity of external weights to force your body into a state of adaptation? This path offers the stress necessary to keep the bones strong and the fibers dense. It is a choice between the fluidity of the gymnast and the brute force of the powerlifter, but the stakes are much higher than mere aesthetics. Both paths offer a version of salvation, yet they speak to your body in different biological languages. One focuses on the harmony of movement, while the other focuses on the architecture of resistance. To reclaim your vitality, you must learn to pull the strategic levers of the longevity trio. First, we must understand the essential master growth regulator known as mTOR, or the mammalian target of rapamycin. This protein acts as the foreman of your cellular construction site, deciding when to build and when to conserve energy. Then, we have insulin-like growth factor 1, known as IGF-1. This is a double-edged sword. It is the powerful fuel that builds muscle and repairs damage, but it must be managed with surgical precision. Too little of it, and you wither away. Too much of it, and you risk accelerating the aging process. Finally, there is the miracle of mitochondrial biogenesis. These are your cellular batteries, the power plants that dictate whether you feel 25 or 75 years old. As we age, these batteries begin to flicker and fail, but through the right kind of physical stress, we can force the body to manufacture brand new ones. Imagine a fast-paced montage of two different futures. In one, the cells are sluggish, the signals are muffled, and the mitochondria are flickering out like old light bulbs in a deserted hallway. This is the default path of the muscle tax. In the other future, a 40-plus athlete moves with the explosive power and fluidity of someone decades younger. Their muscles are dense and functional. Their bones are mineralized, and their mind is sharp because their body is constantly sending signals of growth to the brain. This is the biological renaissance. We are moving away from the idea of middle age as a slow decline into fragility and towards a vision of peak biological management. While the warranty has expired, the architect has taken over the repairs. We are entering a new era where we can reboot the system and stop the clock before it strikes midnight. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. This is not a dream of eternal youth, but a reality of optimized aging through the science of movement. The era of the architect has begun. The logic of the body is governed by hidden machinery that dictates whether our cells are building or breaking down. This journey begins in the 1960s, on the windswept shores of Easter Island. Scientists exploring the soil discovered a unique compound which they named rapamycin. At the time, they had no idea they had stumbled upon the key to the cellular kingdom. This discovery eventually led researchers to identify a specific protein pathway in the human body that responded to this compound. They called it the mammalian target of rapamycin, or lowercase mTOR. This protein complex is the master growth regulator of your entire system. Think of it as the central dispatcher for every building project in your body. When mTOR is activated, it signals the cells to synthesize new proteins, repair damaged muscle fibers, and expand your strength. It is a sensor that is constantly scanning your internal environment for two specific things: the presence of amino acids from the food you eat, and the presence of mechanical stress from the movements you perform. For the athlete over 40, understanding how to communicate with mTOR is the difference between stagnation and a biological renaissance. It is the switch that tells your body that the time for growth is now, regardless of what the calendar says. However, mTOR does not work in a vacuum. It is deeply connected to another powerful messenger known as insulin-like growth factor 1, or IGF-1. This hormone is the primary driver of tissue growth and is heavily influenced by the presence of growth hormone. In our younger years, IGF-1 is abundant, fueling the rapid development of our youth. But as we cross the threshold into our 40s, these levels begin to decline, contributing to the slow onset of sarcopenia. This is why IGF-1 is often described as a double-edged sword in the world of longevity science. On one hand, you need it to maintain muscle mass, keep your bones dense, and ensure your nervous system remains sharp. On the other hand, chronic and excessive elevation of IGF-1 can actually accelerate the aging of certain cells. The goal of the longevity architect is not to maximize these signals at all times, but to optimize them. We want pulses of growth followed by periods of deep cellular cleanup. This biological balancing act is rooted in our evolutionary history. Long before the invention of the modern gym or the concept of resistance training, our ancestors lived in a world of constant physical demand. They were the original calisthenics masters. Their survival depended on their ability to pull their own body weight up a cliffside, to sprint across uneven terrain, and to carry heavy loads over long distances. In this ancestral environment, functional movement was not a choice. It was a requirement for existence. The human body evolved to be incredibly efficient. It realized that muscle is metabolically expensive to maintain. It takes a lot of energy to keep a muscle fiber alive and functional. Therefore, the body will only keep that muscle if it receives a consistent survival signal. When we transitioned from the hunter-gatherer lifestyle to the industrial era and eventually to our modern sedentary lives, that survival signal went silent. For the first time in history, humans could survive without being strong. The body, being the ruthless accountant that it is, responded by letting the muscle wither away. This is the origin of the muscle tax we face today. When you sit at a desk for 8 hours a day, your body assumes you no longer need the strength of your ancestors, and it begins to dismantle your biological armor. This brings us to the fundamental tension of aging, the balance between the anabolic and the catabolic. Anabolic is the state of building up and of growth. Catabolic is the state of breaking down and of recycling. In our youth, the anabolic signals are so loud that they drown out almost everything else. But after 40, the catabolic processes start to gain the upper hand. To reclaim your vitality, you must learn to send a signal so loud and so clear that your body has no choice but to stay in an anabolic state. You must convince your biology that its survival still depends on its strength. This is where the choice between calisthenics and resistance training becomes more than just a workout preference. It becomes a strategic communication with your own genetic code, a way to tell the foreman of your cellular construction site that the work is far from over. The survival signal we send to our bodies does not always have to be a scream of heavy iron. Sometimes, it is a sophisticated conversation conducted through our own weight. This is the flow zone, calisthenics, where the body is tested not by machines, but by the gravity of our own existence. When you perform a pull-up or a controlled dip, your muscles are doing much more than simply moving bone. They act as the largest endocrine organ in your system. During these contractions, muscles release specialized proteins into your bloodstream known as myokines. Scientists call these the hope molecules, and for the athlete over 40, they are the primary currency of your vital rejuvenation. These hope molecules are the messengers of vitality. They travel from the working muscle through the circulatory system, crossing the blood-brain barrier to visit vital organs like the heart and liver. Myokines tell your body that it is still capable and in the fight against the creeping decay of sarcopenia. This antagonist, the silent thief of strength, hates the presence of myokines because they act as a biological counteroffensive. One of the most remarkable molecules is irisin. When you engage in the complex full-body movements inherent to calisthenics, your body produces higher levels of irisin, which has a direct effect on your brain health. Irisin acts as a bridge between physical exertion and mental clarity. It stimulates the production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which acts like fertilizer for your neurons. It promotes neurogenesis while strengthening the connections between existing ones. For the longevity architect, this means every repetition is a hedge against cognitive decline. You are not just building a stronger back, you are sharpening your mind. This is why a 40-year-old moving with bodyweight mastery often possesses a mental sharpness that matches their physical agility. Moving with precision allows the mind to stay integrated with the physical form. Calisthenics offers a unique advantage through neural drive. Unlike a machine that stabilizes your body, bodyweight training requires your nervous system to coordinate hundreds of signals simultaneously. When you practice a muscle-up, your brain fires precise electrical impulses to stabilize your core, maintain a grip, and rotate your shoulders all at once. This creates superior neuromuscular efficiency. It forces the brain to maintain its ability to communicate with the body, a skill that often withers as we age. This drive ensures your strength is functional and accessible in the real world, providing a level of control that machines cannot replicate. As we navigate the age 40 pivot, we must account for the joint tax. Tendons and ligaments do not have the same blood flow as muscles. This means they heal slowly and are prone to wear. High-impact training or heavy lifts can accelerate this, leading to chronic pain. Calisthenics provides a more natural path of motion. By working within the body's mechanical limits, the longevity architect can build strength while improving joint health. Tension is distributed evenly across connective tissues, encouraging collagen production and strengthening ligaments without the crushing compression that external weights can often impose on an aging frame. There is also the factor of proprioception, the ability to sense your position in space. As sarcopenia begins its silent takeover, one of the first things to erode is balance. For an individual in later years, a simple fall can be a catastrophic event. Calisthenics is a masterclass in proprioception. Because you are constantly balancing your weight, you are training your nervous system to stay upright and agile. This is the ultimate insurance policy. By mastering your body weight today, you are preventing the falls of tomorrow and ensuring you remain the master of your movements at age 80. The beauty of this approach lies in its accessibility. In the flow zone, you are not fighting metal. You are becoming one with your own biological machinery. You are proving to mTOR and IGF that you are a dynamic entity that refuses to be grounded by time. This signaling is about systemic harmony. Every movement sends a pulse of hope through the system, reminding the mitochondria in your cells that there is vital power to be generated. The calisthenic flow is the first pillar of our total architecture, providing the functional foundation upon which our strength will be built. While the rhythmic grace of calisthenics provides the nervous system with a sophisticated map of movement, there is another sanctuary where the longevity architect must spend their time to truly fortify the body against the passage of years. This is the Iron Fortress. If calisthenics is the art of internal communication, resistance training is the science of external force. For the athlete over 40, the Iron Fortress represents the most potent weapon against the silent takeover of sarcopenia. This is where we engage with mechanical tension, which is the primary driver of muscle hypertrophy, and the most direct way to speak to the master growth regulator known as mTOR. In the cellular landscape, mTOR is like a busy foreman waiting for a clear reason to build new structures. While body weight movements provide a steady signal, lifting heavy external loads provides an undeniable and loud command. When you step into a squat rack or grip a heavy barbell for a deadlift, the mechanical tension experienced by your muscle fibers creates tiny micro-tears at the microscopic level. This is not damage to be feared. It is a vital biological signal for survival. These tears trigger a cascade of chemical reactions that force mTOR to recruit amino acids and ramp up protein synthesis. This process does not just maintain your current muscle mass. It forces the body to build a more robust, more resilient version of itself. For those of us navigating the middle years, this is the essential act of reclaiming the biological territory that time tries to steal every single day. However, the benefits of the iron fortress extend far deeper than the surface of the muscle tissue. Beneath the flesh lies the skeletal foundation, and it is here that resistance training performs its most miraculous work for longevity. As we age, we face the quiet and dangerous threat of osteopenia, the thinning of our bones that precedes osteoporosis. Our bones are not static, dead structures. They are living, dynamic tissues that respond to the stress placed upon them. When you subject your skeleton to the heavy loading of external weights, you are directly activating the osteoblasts. These are the specialized cells responsible for bone formation and repair. The mechanical stress forces these cells to lay down new minerals, increasing bone density and structural integrity through the process of mineralization. This is the only way to ensure your frame remains strong enough to carry you through the second half of your life without breaking. Without this external load, the bones begin to grow porous, becoming brittle and fragile under the weight of time and gravity. Beyond the architecture of bone and muscle, the iron fortress offers a profound metabolic shield that protects the entire system. Every pound of muscle you build acts as a glucose sponge. In our modern world, insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes are among the most significant threats to a long and healthy life. As we pass 40, our ability to manage blood sugar often begins to decline as our metabolism shifts. But muscle tissue is metabolically expensive. It requires a constant stream of energy just to exist. By increasing your muscle mass through resistance training, you are significantly increasing your body's capacity to absorb and utilize glucose. This improves your insulin sensitivity and creates a state of metabolic flexibility. You become a person who can process fuel efficiently, preventing the systemic inflammation that fuels so many age-related diseases. The unique advantage of training with external weights is the ability to isolate and target the specific architecture of strength that body weight alone might miss. While body weight movements are holistic and natural, they can sometimes leave gaps in our physical armor. Resistance training allows the longevity architect to identify weak points, perhaps in the posterior chain, the hamstrings, or the stabilizers of the shoulder, and apply direct, measurable stress to those areas. This precision ensures that no part of the body is left vulnerable to the muscle tax. We can specifically build the structural integrity required to protect our joints and maintain our posture for decades to come. There is a single, simple metric that serves as a powerful predictor of how long and how well we will live, and it is forged primarily in the iron fortress. This is grip strength. Scientific research has consistently shown a direct and undeniable correlation between grip strength and all-cause mortality. A firm, powerful grip is not just about the muscles in your hand or forearm. It is a reflection of your total systemic health and the integrity of your central nervous system. It is the canary in the coal mine for longevity. When you train with heavy weights, you are constantly challenging your grip, sending a constant signal to your brain that you are still capable of holding on to life with vigor and intensity. This is the fortress of strength we build, a physical and metabolic bastion that keeps the shadows of decay at bay. By combining the precision of iron with the flow of our own weight, we are not just exercising. We are constructing a life that is built to last far beyond the expectations of time. This physical structure requires energy, and that energy is produced in the hidden power plants of our cells. As we step away from the external heavy lifting of the iron fortress, we must look inward to the very microscopic foundations of our existence. To understand why the longevity architect often feels a sudden dip in vitality after 40, we must look at the cellular battery known as the mitochondria. These tiny organelles are the power plants of every cell in your body, converting the food you eat and the oxygen you breathe into adenosine triphosphate, or ATP, the fundamental currency of life. In our youth, these power plants are efficient, numerous, and resilient. They churn out energy with minimal waste, fueling the boundless stamina of a 20-year-old. But as the biological warranty expires, a silent decay begins. Mitochondrial dysfunction is perhaps the single most significant driver of what we perceive as aging. When your cellular batteries begin to leak or fail, you do not just feel tired. Your entire biological system begins to lose its ability to repair, defend, and regenerate itself. This is the true root of the feeling of being old, a state where the energy required for life exceeds the energy being produced. This is where the true brilliance of a dual training strategy reveals its hidden value. When we engage in either the intense mechanical tension of resistance training or the high-volume endurance of calisthenics, we trigger a critical signaling protein called PGC1-alpha. Think of this protein as the master switch for mitochondrial biogenesis. It is the internal signal that tells your cells to stop accepting decline and start building new power plants. Through the regular stress of movement, the longevity architect effectively reboots the system. We are not just maintaining the old, battered batteries. We are forcing the body to manufacture fresh, high-performance energy centers. This process is the key to reclaiming that lost spark of vitality. By demanding more energy from our muscles, we create a biological demand that the body must meet by expanding its internal power grid. There is a fascinating debate within the world of sports science regarding which training style is superior for this cellular renovation. High-volume calisthenics, with its repetitive motions and metabolic demand, creates a specific type of endurance pressure that encourages mitochondrial density. This produces a system that is incredibly efficient at clearing waste and managing oxygen during long periods of activity. On the other hand, the high-intensity bursts of resistance training, which push the muscle to its absolute limit, stimulate rapid adaptation and a different set of metabolic pathways that favor peak power. For the person over 40, the answer is not to choose one over the other, but to recognize that both are necessary to create a cleaner and more robust energy production system. A hybrid approach ensures that we are not only building more mitochondria, but also making each individual unit more efficient and less prone to producing oxidative stress. Perhaps the most profound benefit of this metabolic stress is the process of autophagy, or cellular cleaning. As we age, our bodies accumulate what scientists call senescent cells, often referred to as zombie cells. These are cells that have stopped dividing and performing their functions, but refuse to die. Instead, they sit within our tissues, secreting inflammatory signals that accelerate the decay of neighboring healthy cells. This systemic inflammation is the fuel that sarcopenia uses to expand its reach, slowly eroding our strength and health. However, when we push our bodies through rigorous training, we trigger a survival response that forces the body to go into a state of self-cleaning. The stress of training identifies these broken cellular components and zombie cells, breaking them down and recycling them for fuel or new building blocks. This is how we flush the system of the biological debris that makes us feel old, heavy, and stagnant. Imagine for a moment the difference between the mitochondria of a sedentary 40-year-old and an active 20-year-old. The younger individual's cells are like a modern, high-tech city with a pristine and efficient power grid. The sedentary older individual's cells are like a crumbling town with frequent blackouts and leaking pipes that waste precious fuel. But the longevity architect who masters the balance between the iron fortress and the flow zone can effectively bridge this gap. By consistently triggering PGC1-alpha and encouraging autophagy, a 50-year-old can possess the mitochondrial efficiency and density of someone decades younger. We are essentially rewiring our internal infrastructure, ensuring that the power plant remains capable of sustaining the high-performance life we intend to lead well into our 80s and beyond. This is the true definition of a biological renaissance. It is the moment where the internal energy meets the external strength, creating a foundation that is ready to support the complex hormonal symphony required to keep the fire of youth burning bright. This internal power is the engine that will drive our hormones into their optimal state, allowing us to master the next phase of our architecture. This internal power is the engine that will drive our hormones into their optimal state, allowing us to master the next phase of our architecture. As we move deeper into the blueprint of longevity, we must confront the chemical messengers that govern every aspect of our physical and mental state. After the age of 40, the hormonal climate within the human body undergoes a significant and often challenging transformation. Testosterone, the primary driver of protein synthesis and competitive drive, begins its gradual and persistent descent. Growth hormone, once abundant during our developmental years and responsible for rapid recovery, starts to dwindle as well. For the longevity architect, this transition is not a signal to give up, but a call to refine the strategy with surgical precision. We are no longer working with the limitless hormonal credit of our youth. Every workout is now a significant withdrawal from a finite biological account, and how we manage those withdrawals determines whether we flourish in a state of vitality or fade into the shadows of premature aging. This brings us to the vital concept of hormetic stress. In the world of biology, hormesis is the principle that a small amount of stress can be profoundly beneficial, stimulating repair and growth, while an excessive amount becomes toxic and destructive. In the iron fortress or the flow zone, finding the Goldilocks zone of training is the ultimate goal for the athlete over 40. This is the elusive sweet spot where the mechanical tension of a heavy squat or the complex neural demand of a muscle-up provides just enough stimulus to wake up the master growth regulator, mTOR, and trigger the release of insulin like growth factor 1. When we hit this mark, we send a clear message to the body that it must remain strong and resilient. However, if we push too far beyond this point, we stumble into the cortisol trap. The cortisol trap is perhaps the greatest danger for the 40-plus athlete who refuses to adapt their intensity. Cortisol is the primary stress hormone of the body, and in short, controlled bursts, it is useful for mobilizing energy and focus. However, if our training sessions are too long, too frequent, or excessively intense for our current recovery capacity, cortisol levels remain chronically elevated. High cortisol is the natural enemy of muscle mass and long-term health. It acts like a corrosive acid within the system, melting away the very muscle tissue we are working so hard to build while simultaneously suppressing the natural production of testosterone. This is the root cause of the age 40 burnout, a frustrating state where an individual is working harder than ever before, but seeing their body become softer, their joints more painful, and their energy completely vanish. To avoid this catastrophe, we must shift our focus from raw, absolute intensity to strategic volume and intelligent recovery. The activation of the mTOR pathway is only one half of the architectural equation. Without the raw materials provided by amino acids and the deep restoration found in high-quality sleep, the signaling pathways are like a construction crew with no bricks or mortar. For the aging adult, protein intake is no longer just about basic nutrition. It is a pharmacological intervention of the highest order. Leucine, a specific and powerful amino acid, acts as a direct chemical trigger for the mTOR pathway. By prioritizing high-quality protein at every meal, the longevity architect ensures that the survival signal sent during the workout is actually translated into new, functional muscle fiber. Furthermore, deep sleep is the only time when the body truly maximizes the natural release of growth hormone. It is the essential period when the cellular batteries are recharged and the most critical architectural repairs are completed. Without 7 to 9 hours of quality rest, even the most perfect training program will eventually lead to a state of systemic decline. Finally, we must address the fundamental mindset shift required for this stage of life. In our 20s, most of us train for the mirror, chasing the superficial aesthetics of visible biceps and razor-thin body fat percentages. But as the biological warranty expires, the goalpost inevitably moves. We are now training for vitality, a concept that encompasses much more than just a lean physique. This does not mean we cannot look incredible. but our primary focus has shifted to the preservation of systemic health and functional integrity. We are building a body that can move with grace, lift with power, and recover with surprising speed. We are optimizing our hormones not just to look younger, but to feel more vibrant and alive in every moment. When we prioritize functional strength and hormonal balance, the aesthetics become a natural and welcome byproduct of a well-tuned machine. We are shifting from being a mere consumer of fitness to being the true architect of our own biological destiny, ensuring the symphony of our hormones remains in perfect harmony as we prepare for the final integration of our strategy. The debate between the Iron Fortress and the calisthenic flow is finally revealed as a false choice. We do not need to choose between the heavy mechanical tension of the barbell and the fluid, neuromuscular mastery of bodyweight movement. To thrive after 40, we must embrace both with equal conviction. By combining these two worlds, we create a synergistic effect that addresses every pillar of the longevity architecture. We use heavy weights to command mTOR to build bone density and thick muscle fibers, and we use calisthenics to flood our systems with the hope molecules known as myokines. This hybrid approach ensures that we are not just strong, but also mobile, balanced, and mentally sharp. Implementing this requires a structural blueprint that balances intensity with recovery. Imagine a weekly cycle that begins not with a mindless grind, but with a specific purpose. 2 days a week, the athlete enters the Iron Fortress. Here, the focus is on heavy, compound movements like the squat or the deadlift. These exercises are the ultimate tools for triggering the mTOR pathway and stimulating the production of IGF-1. This mechanical tension is what tells the skeletal system to mineralize and the muscles to resist the creeping hands of sarcopenia. On the alternating days, the athlete moves into the calisthenic flow. These sessions are about pull-ups, dips, and mobility work. This is where we stimulate the release of irisin, protecting our brain health and enhancing neurogenesis. This variety prevents the overuse injuries common in the post-warranty years. It keeps the joints supple and the nervous system sharp. By rotating between these two distinct demands, we avoid the cortisol trap and the age 40 burnout. We are essentially giving the body 2 different reasons to stay young every week. This shift in perspective redefines the middle years. We no longer see the age of 40 as the beginning of a long, slow decline. Instead, it becomes a period of peak biological management. We are no longer training with the reckless abandon of a teenager. We are training with the wisdom of a master architect. We understand that every repetition is an investment in our future self. We are managing the PGC1 alpha signaling in our mitochondria to ensure our power plants stay efficient. We are using the stress of our workouts to trigger autophagy, clearing away the senescent zombie cells that cause systemic inflammation. This is a sophisticated game of life extension where the prize is not a trophy, but a high-functioning, autonomous existence. We are reclaiming our vitality from a society that expects us to simply slow down and accept frailty as an inevitability. We are proving that age is a variable we can control. The challenge now is to stop measuring your age by the date on your birth certificate. That number is a social construct that has little to do with the health of your internal architecture. Instead, measure your biological age through performance markers. How is your grip strength? Can you hang from a pull-up bar for a full minute? Can you carry your own body weight in a farmer's walk for 50 meters? These are the real metrics of longevity. They are the indicators of structural integrity that matter far more than any birthday cake. If these markers are declining, it is time to adjust your blueprint and increase your investment. If they are rising, you are successfully reversing the clock and building something that will last. Start today by looking at your training as a physical 401k. Every push-up, every heavy lift, and every moment of deep recovery is a deposit into an account that you will draw upon when you reach 80. The goal is to reach that distant horizon, not with a whimper of weakness, but with the same fire and vitality you feel right now. The vibrant 80 is not a fantasy. It is the logical conclusion of a life lived with architectural intent. You have the tools, you understand the pathways of mTOR and the power of myokines, and you finally have the blueprint. The biological renaissance has already begun within you. Build your fortress, find your flow, and master the long game for a life without limits.